I'm Michele Allen. I'm an artist based in the Northeast, and I make a lot of work about people's relationships to place and environment. Sometimes that is the natural environment, but sometimes that's also civic space, and I'm quite interested in how those things overlap. The work I have in this exhibition is all about our marine ecosystems and focuses on a particular stretch of the northeast coast around the River Tees estuary. I started off making the work as a way of thinking about a mass die-off of crustacea which happened along this coast in our region in 2021, and it affected around 60 miles of coast. Quite a devastating incident. I didn't witness the actual die-off, but what I did over a period of about 18 months is walk a big area of coast, particularly focusing around the Tees estuary. Thinking about that practice as being a kind of walking witness, a kind of witness after the fact, and trying to reflect on how do we understand something like that. Quite early on in the process, I met Dr. Gary Caldwell, who has done a huge amount of research into the die-off and presented at the DEFRA inquiry. And he has worked really closely with the Tees fishing community to try and understand what has happened. And to really he's a kind of great advocate for them and for the ecosystems around this area. And there's an interview with him here on headphones, and there's also a transcript of that. I was particularly interested in the way that he talks about work with the fishing community and how that challenged his understandings of marine ecosystems as a marine biologist, and the different kinds of knowledge that might come into play, the work that that community were doing to conserve the fish stocks and sort of sustain that ecosystem and that habitat. And probably important to stress, those fishing communities are small scale inshore fishing, they're not big trawlers by any stretch. The other pieces of work in the exhibition are, there's a big map on the floor which roughly corresponds to the area I walked, but also is a kind of outline of a designated site of special scientific interest and a marine conservation zone, all of which fall within the affected coastline. So I was keen to sort of draw attention to some of the kind of structures that are in place to protect these sites. They're not easy designations to obtain. They're there because there's a lot of valuable wildlife there. And then one of the things Gary had said to me early on when in our conversations was, how could you show that the sea is empty? Like, how could you show that the damage that's been done? And I remember thinking, well, how could you show that it's full as well? Like, actually, how do we understand these spaces, especially if we haven't really got any immediate connection to them and we're not in them all the time, and the sea can be quite sort of mysterious and unknown to a lot of us. So really this work is a way of trying to think around some of those questions as well. There's a timeline here that is a collection of objects which I gathered whilst I was walking the coastline, and those are organised in terms of how long different creatures live for. So I think a big thing for me has been in the wake of a kind of mass mortality of creatures, how long does it take for things to recover? What does recovery look like? And then a key element of that is also this film, working with Tees Rivers Trust, and they're working on a habitat restoration project, trying to recreate native oyster reefs and also seagrass meadows. And the film is called More Than a Lifetime because one of the marine biologists was commenting that it would take longer than her professional career to re-establish a seagrass meadow. And she was like relatively young, like maybe in her late 20s or early 30s. So it just struck me how long a process that is, but also the amazing commitment of people that are doing it, and the fact that time is a really important aspect of the work I'm making. Thinking about the time it takes for something to grow and recover, and also the time that people are putting into this. A lot of this work is being done by volunteers. So I was really keen to emphasise that, and the film is quite slow in a way, but I think that's also a way of trying to just reference the kind of ongoing and repetitive nature of this work and the work people do in these habitats.